Hello and welcome to the part 5 of our CSS course. In this video, we're going to talk about Flex. In the previous videos, we talked about the CSS box model, display property and positioning, and some fundamentals about the CSS. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about the Flexbox model. I have this index.html file here, and then I have an empty style.css file, and I have referenced that CSS file inside my HTML. Put this style.css in the side to see both, and then collapse the sidebar. All right, so let's talk about the Flexbox. Flexbox simplifies the alignment of elements in a single dimension. What I mean by that is that Flexbox allows us to arrange items in a row or in a column. I'm going to go ahead and create a div element here. Inside this div, I'm going to create another div, 1, duplicate it, and make 2, and then 3. So this way we have a div, and then we have 3 divs as children. So I'm going to add an ID here, and I call this container, and I'm going to select that inside the CSS and add the display of Flex. So this will make it a container for Flex. So I'm going to go ahead and run this file with live server extension, and it will automatically open the browser here for me. So right now you can see we have 1, 2, 3 here. And if I open the DevTools, you can see we have the container and all these 3 elements. Now, in the HTML, I'm going to go ahead and select these div elements and add a class of item to all of them. So now I can select the item and add the width of 100 pixels and height of 100 pixels as well. I'm also going to add the background color of light coral. Beautiful. So if we go back here, you can see now we have 3 boxes. Now, since the container is Flex, we can see these boxes side by side. Otherwise, if I comment this line, you can see they are stacked vertically. And each one, since they have the display of block, each one will start in a new line. We talked about this in previous video. So you can see each one of them start in a new line. And Flex actually is here to exactly prevent that. Now, in the Flex, we have a property called Flex Direction. And the default value for that is row. When we say row for Flex Direction, we mean that the main axis is horizontal axis. So here you can see these are side by side in a horizontal line, so in a row. We also have row reverse, which basically changes the direction. Right now you can see it starts from right to left, and 1 is here, 2 and 3. The main axis still is the horizontal, but in reverse order. And we also have column. And if we set it to column, now you can see it is stacked vertically, and it starts from 1, 2 and 3. And we also have column reverse that causes the 1 start from the bottom, 1, 2, and 3. And right now, since the container has a limited height, if we change the height here, if I set it to 400 pixels, now I say 400 because I have 3 items that each has 100 pixels of height. So 300 pixels for items and 100 pixels of void space for the height. Now, there you go. You can see for column reverse, it starts at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, and we have some empty space up here. So that's the Flex Direction that provides the main axis. But why this main axis is so important that I'm insisting on it? Well, because we have some other properties that rely on this axis. Right on the container that we have the display of Flex, we can change the alignment of the items of the container. The property is called justify content, baseline center end, flex start, and whatever, right? So let's go ahead and make it center. So justify content. And now you can see 1, 2, 3, they do not start from the start. They become centerized. And we can change the value for that here as well. So to showcase that, you can see it's center. If we set it to center, it jumps to center, and end goes to the end, to the far right. So flex end, flex start, left, normal, right, space around. So this one adds space around each item and space between. So sets the first and the last items at the sides, divides the space between them, or space evenly. All right, so now you see the main axis alignment here with justify content. Now, if we change the row to column, you can see justify content works in a vertical axis. So it's not about horizontal or vertical, it's about the main axis. So justify content is all about the main axis that the container has. So in this case, the direction, which specifies the main axis, is column. So justify content is about the column. So when we say something like center, so you can see it's vertically centered, or flex end, it aligns all the items at the end of the main axis, or start at the start of the main axis. And space around, you can see it adds space around items, or space between, or evenly. Justify content is about justification or alignment of the items in the main axis. But what about the cross axis? Well, for alignment in cross axis, we have align items. Now, just like the justify content, we have values for that as well, like center. Now you can see the items are centralized in both main axis, in this case it is row, and cross axis, which is here. We set it to center. Now to see this visually, if you select an item that has the display of flex, you can see this flex button in the elements section. So if you click on that, it will show you some guides about the items. As an example, it shows that these are void spaces. And if you click on this icon, it will show you this toolbox that we can visually see the values for each item. So right now you can see flex direction is row. And if I click on this, it's going to change it to column, or row reverse, or a column reverse. Now I added these numbers here specifically to actually see the reverse. So in reverse, 1 goes down, but in column, 1 is at the top. Right now, the direction is top to bottom, and for column reverse, the direction is bottom to top. Now, we have flex wrap and align content. Ignore them for now. We're going to talk about them in a bit. Now, we have justify content. So here you can see we can change it like start for the flex start. So items move to the start of the main axis. Remember, justify content is always about the main axis, which in this case is row. So left to right. So when we set it to flex end, it's going to jump here. What will happen if I change the main axis from row to row reverse? There you go. So now main axis now is from right to left. So end is going to be left. If I change the main axis to left to right, left is start, right is end. So flex end is the right. We can change it here and actually see the values for each. And then we have align items, which is about the cross axis alignment. So right now our main axis is horizontal, or left to right. So left to right. So the cross axis or align items for that right now is center. If I set it to start, it's going to go all the way up. Flex end, it's going to go down the bottom. We can set it to stretch and also the baseline. So we're going to talk about them in a bit. And justify content is about the alignment in main axis, and align items is about the alignment in cross axis. So if I change this to vertical axis, right now you can see justify content, I can set it to centralize, because the justify content now is about the alignment in vertical axis. The main axis now is this vertical axis. Now, if I change the align items to start, to flex start, it will go to the left, because the main axis is this vertical and cross axis is left to right. So if I say start, start is left, end is right, center is center. So this is the power of Flexbox. You can see we can change the layout quickly. Let's go back here, and instead of providing height for items, I'm going to provide some text inside. So I'm going to say lorem and copy that. And I'm going to paste it for all 3 of them. I have 3 items. I'm going to save the CSS. So they have these texts. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the text for items. So first item, 2 letters. Second one, a sentence or a couple of letters, and the third one, the full sentence. So now you can see they have different heights. So we have 3 of them, and all 3 have different heights. So if I open the DevTools and go back to this flex container, now you can see the flex direction is row. Technically, the main axis is row, and align items, which is about the vertical alignment, is centerized. Change it to flex end, flex start, normal. Now, you see the normal behavior right now. So if we don't provide the align items, it's going to stretch all the elements. Basically, the normal behavior is same as stretch here. So stretch means we'll fill the entire height. So if we don't provide align items, it will fill the entire height. So that's the behavior for this. Right now, we have only 3 items. What will happen if I go back here, change it to 1, change this one to 2, and change this one to 3? And what will happen if I add 2 more, like 4 and 5? So now you can see if I increase the width, we have some empty space here and some empty space here. And if I reduce the width, you can see I can compress the elements, so their width changes. So each item here, even though we have set the width to be 100 pixel, we can compress them, basically. And the reason for that is because we have set this to row. So it should be in a row. There's no overflow or there's no anything else. They always stay in a row. Now, to change this, we can add flex wrap. And if we change the wrap to wrap, now you can see they collapse and they go to the next line. So flex wrap will say that, okay, since each element has 100 pixel, and if the width of the container is not sufficient, I'm going to break the line. So if I decrease the width here, you can see more items appear in the next line. At this width, as an example, each line can only contain 1 element. And if I shrink it down, you can see we have overflow. So they don't even shrink, they just go out of the sight. So this is the flex wrap behavior. Now that the elements have wrapped, if I go back to this flex toolbox, now we can change the align content. You can see that we have wrap. If I set it to no wrap, so it is all in one line, and I can select and set it to wrap, and they wrap. Now the align content is relevant when we have the wrap. So you can see I can centralize it, and I say, okay, if you wrap any element, it should stay in the center. Or I can change it and say, go to the start. So the align items is about the items in the line, and align content is about the alignment of those lines themselves. So when we set the align content to flex start, it will move the lines to the start. And when we say align items, we mean items inside each line. Now you see that the align content is relevant only if we have the wrap. All right, so far we have been talking only about the container that has the display of flex. Now, we can also add some properties on the children or on the items of the flex container since they are flex items. All right, so far we've been talking about the container that has the display of flex. And we talked about the flex direction, justify content, align items, the flex wrap, and align content. Right now, let's focus on the item or the children of a flex container. In the browser right now, so we have 5 boxes and each has the width of 100 pixels. So here we have this flex container and you can see we have 5 boxes here, and each of these boxes, they have the width of 100 pixels and the background color of light coral. And let's explore some properties for the child elements and see how we can add some styling to these flex items. Right now, you can see all of them compressed down whenever I reduce the width of the view. And if I increase the width, all of them start to grow. And we can change that. We can add a specific style to one of them. So right now, the item targets all the items with the class of item. In HTML, we can add more than one class to each element. So I can add item-1 here as well, and I can select and target that here. So this means that this div that I have here has 2 classes. And we do this in HTML all the time. We add a general class to all the items, and then we add a specific class to only one element. So here I have the item -1, and I can select that like this and add a background color. So this way we can override the background color that item provides for it. There you go. You can see it's light blue now. And the reason for that is because it overrides the background color that comes from that item. And the reason that it overrides it is because this block here comes after this. So if I switch their position, now the item comes after that. Right now you can see again, the background color is light coral and background color of light blue is not set. All right, so let's change the position and we have targeted this one. Now the first property is flex shrink. So flex shrink will control the shrink behavior of this element. So right now we're only talking about this item -1, this first element. So the default value for this is 1. And 1 means shrink, means true. Flex shrink 1, so it has no effect. And to showcase that, if I shrink it, you can see it shrinks like other elements. So to showcase that, you can see I can shrink all the elements and all of the elements shrink just like each other. Now, if we change that to 0, this means do not, false, do not shrink. Now, if I try to compress the elements, you can see all of the other elements shrink and compress, but the one won't, and it stays with the same width. So you can see all the other elements shrink except for this element. And the reason for that, if I select it, is because this flex shrink. If I deselect that, you can see it shrinks as well. But if I set it back, there you go. We can actually add this to other elements as well. All we have to do is add this one here, item -2. Now I can do item -2 here and copy this and paste it here. And now you can see all the elements shrink except for 1 and 3. And the next one is about flex grow. And the default value for this now is 0. And flex grow of 1 will say, okay, allow it to grow more than its width that we have provided, or more than the width of its content. As an example here, if I increase the width, if I zoom out a little bit, now as I increase the width, all the other elements reach to their maximum width, which is 100 pixels here, but this element grows infinitely. The reason for that is because this flex grow. If I hover my mouse over it, you can actually see it shows the actual width and it shows an arrow here for the flex grow. And if I deselect this, you can see it jumps back to its original width. So flex grow will allow us to grow the width of element if it's possible. All right, so flex grow and flex shrink are the most used flex item properties in CSS for the flex items. And that's it for the flex items. Now, the final topic that we're going to cover in this video is about the outlier element. Now, what I mean by that, let me just remove this flex grow. So right now we have item, and the item 1, only the first element will have this background of light blue. So we have them. And all of them are nicely positioned centered. And the reason for that is because container has justified content of center and align items of center. And it puts child elements in one position. Now we can override the styles of this layout alignment for a specific item. So what I mean by this is that I can select one element, one flex item, and I can say align self. And this means I can only override the alignment for this specific flex item. And now, for example, I can put it in end. All of them are centered, but this one is an outlier and it goes to the end. Or I can set it to flex start, it jumps to the start. Remember, this is only about the alignment, which is in cross axis. So right now, our flex, the direction for our flex is row. So main axis is this horizontal line. So align self, end. So I can only do this in cross axis. Now, if I go and change the direction of this flex container and let's change it to column, now the main axis is vertical, top to bottom, and this align self gets applied in cross axis, which is the horizontal line, the left to right. So end becomes right. So align self is for overriding the cross axis item positioning. All right, so that's it for the whole Flexbox concept. As always, you can read more about them inside our reference website. let's work on a couple of examples. First, we're going to centralize a div element, which is very easy. Then we're going to create this navbar, and then we're going to extend this navbar to a header. So let's just jump into the code. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the style.css and also remove the entire body element. So let's start from scratch. First, let's centralize a div. What I want to do, I want to create a box with a width and height and put a box inside that, put this inner box at the center of this outer box. So I'm going to create a div and another div. So this div should be at the center of this outer div. So I'm going to add a class of outer and then add a class of inner to these elements. And then I'm going to select the outer with 300 pixels, duplicate it down, and change the width to height. And also, let's add a border of 1 pixel, solid black. There you go. And then let's target the inner and add the width of 50 pixels and height of the same 50 pixels. And my favorite background color of light coral. All right. There you go. Now you can see we have this outer box, and then we have an inner box here. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Let's say we want to centralize this breadbox and put it in here. So it should be centralized horizontally and vertically. Well, I guess that's very easy. First, we're going to set the display to flex. If we say justify content and put it in center, this will centralize it in main axis, which is currently the horizontal line. Now to centralize it in the cross axis, we should say align items center. That's it. And now we have centralized this. Let's go ahead and create a navbar. So I'm going to remove everything here and everything here and create a nav element. We talked about the nav element and its accessibility effect in HTML course. And let's go ahead and create an A tag and leave the href for empty. Let's say home, duplicate it down. Let's say about, duplicate it down. Let's say services, duplicate it down. And let's say contact. So we have this nav element that contains 4 anchor tags. So inside the CSS, let's target the nav element with nav and then add the display of flex. And add the justify content of center. By the way, you might notice that I don't type the entire CSS property. And that's because VS Code. What I do is usually I just say just cont. Because the typing of the dash is really hard for me. I have to move my right hand a lot or the fingers. It's very easy. For example, if I want to type align items, I say align it like that. And you can see I just hit enter, it sets that for me. And same goes for a lot of things. For example, the height, I don't even type height. I just say HEI. It's very helpful. So VS Code and this IDE is really helpful for HTML, CSS, and programming in general. That's why we call it integrated development environment. We talked about that in the development environment setup. All right, so let's set it back, justify content center. And you can see for the value, I do the same. I just type a couple of letters and then hit enter. Now, if I go here, you can see all of them are centralized. Let's target the A tags and add horizontal margins to them. Remember, we had the margin. First value is vertical axis and the second one is horizontal axis. So now I added 10 pixels of horizontal margin to each. So let's go ahead and turn this into a full header. What I want to do now is wrap the entire nav element inside a header. And let's say I want to add the logo here. So there, and a login button here. So right now, you can see logo is here and login here. What I want to do is logo appear here. Then we have the nav links and then login appear in the far right here. I'm going to close the DevTools to see this better. Again, we want to see the logo here. And there's no logo, by the way. We just want to show the logo text. This nav bar here and then login here, the login button. Now, to do this, first of all, let me just create a button here and say login. This one is easy. There you go. So logo here, nav bar here, and login here. Now to do that, we're going to turn the header into a flex element. select the header and say display flex. Now all of them show in a row. There you go. So logo and the nav links and the login button here. If I inspect this, you can see the header actually has the whole width here, but it doesn't distribute the elements there. And the reason for that is justify. So we should add the justify content of space between. So this way, there you go. You can see logo stays here and this entire nav links and then login here. So basically what it sees like the header is login, this nav and the button. And when we say space between, it will push all of them at the maximum space from each other like this. And we can actually change the space between to space around this way. So the logo and the button won't get to the far side. So there's going to be some space here. All right, so this looks like a cool header. Now let's extend this a little bit and actually summarize the content that we have learned so far. I'm going to go ahead and here create a paragraph tag and add a lorem of 1,000. So there's going to be 1,000 words here. You can see there's a lot of random words here. And the reason I did that because I wanted to see this scroll. Now this header, so we should turn its position to sticky and stick it at the top. So I'm going to say header here that I have header. I'm going to say position sticky. And remember, sticky will only work if we provide one of the top, left, right, and bottom, at least one. So I'm going to say top 0. So now if I scroll down, you can see it sticks to the top. And right now it's not looking good because its background is transparent. So if we add a background of white, now if I scroll down, you can see it has the white background. Now the next missing thing here is a white padding because this button sticks all the way to the top and bottom of the header. So I'm going to say padding. Remember, the first value is the vertical axis and the second one is the horizontal axis. So I'm adding 20 pixels of vertical space. So now you can see there's 20 pixels of padding. I'm going to add a border to the bottom as well. Remember we had the border. So I'm going to say border bottom like this, 1 pixel solid. Let's go with gray. Or I'm going to change this a little bit to the black this way. So now there's this line. So if I scroll down, you can see the header sticks to the top and we have the logo here, nav links, and the login button. Beautiful. Let's say we want to have a sidebar here as well. A sidebar with a bunch of links and then the text here. In order to do that, first of all, I'm going to collapse this paragraph tag. I'm going to create a div element and wrap and put the p tag inside that div and create another div here and add the class name of sidebar. And remember, when we try to have the sidebar, it's better to use a side tag. It is better for sidebar. Also, let's add the class of content here. Actually, it's better to change this div to main element. All right, so I'm going to scroll down inside the CSS and say .content. I target this content element here. I could also say main instead of .content. Let's convert it to flex. Select the sidebar, and let's set a fixed width of 300 pixels. Also, let's turn its height to 100%. And let's go ahead and create a couple of links here. Let's say title 1 and title 2. All right, so let's see the preview. All right, so you can see the sidebar doesn't have the width of 300 pixels. The reason for that is because the content, this main content, is a flex. It causes shrink to the sidebar. So inside the sidebar, we can say flex shrink 0. And there we go. This way you can see it stays here. But the problem is that when I scroll down, the sidebar should stay here as well. I don't want the sidebar to scroll as well. So what I'm going to say is turn the position of the sidebar to sticky as well and add the top of 200 pixels. So this is an example value. So right now you can see the sidebar actually stays here. All right, so it seems like the sidebar has a lot of width. Let's reduce the width a bit. So let's change it to 200 pixels. All right. And let's add a border right to 1 pixel, solid gray. If you preview this, you can see the border is here. And the reason border is here because the height is not correct. So we have set height to 100%. I want you to change this to 100 VH, which is equivalent of 100 viewport height, basically meaning the whole height. So we're going to talk about this in future, but for now, let's just set it there because we're going to stock here if we don't. So this means that full height. So right now it's way more down. That's because the top is 200 pixels. Let's change it to 40 pixels. You can see it is a little bit on top of the header, and we can increase the top to 60 pixels. All right, so now I guess it's better. Let's say 64 pixels. There you go. So now it's much more better. So you can see if I scroll down, all the way down, the height is 100 VH. You can see it takes the whole height. We can go and reduce the height to something like 80 VH. There you go. So now if I scroll down, it stays there. If I scroll up, now let's go ahead and add some paddings to the sidebar and the text here that we have. So I'm going to select the P and add padding of, I don't know, like 20 pixels. So there's a padding around it. And also we're going to say display flex and flex direction to column. They appear like this. And also let's add a bit of padding here as well, like 20 pixels. And there you go. We have a solid sidebar. Let's reduce the width because it looks bad. Let's go with 100 pixels. There you go. All right. So now with only the flex and the things that we have learned so far, we were able to create this layout. So we have the header, which sticks there. We have the left sidebar. It is sticky. Now I want you to go ahead and add a right sidebar here as well. So if you add a right sidebar here as well, congratulations, because you just created or reference website's layout. You can see the header, left sidebar, and right sidebar sticks there, and only the main content here scrolls. And in the next video, we're going to talk about responsive design and how to design for different devices from mobile, tablet, and desktop application based on the size of the viewport. So see you there.